And we
Put it in touch.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
And that picture should come up. That's Pete. That's up close. Right.
You hear music, but please, no, you're not. You don't give me this countdown. I'm recording them. You just come on in.
Thank you.
When I load the music, then come on in.
Hey, good morning. This is Straight Up the Middle. In Touch News, radio news, reality news, everybody's a star. This is Professor Tony Seabrook. And I'm joined by Julius Adams, right?
Right.
It's been a while, so you guys, I'm going to ask for your patience ahead of time. You don't have, as Clint would say, the melodious sounds of his voice. You have more of me, which is what I self-describe as Kermit. So you can go ahead and get on me about that. But anyway, we have a good show set up for you. We're going to start off talking about some economy facts, a little bit of that Georgia runoff, and get into some of the investigation talks, and then the biggest thing, we can all shove it up under Twitter files, and that's most recent. That happened about 5 p.m. yesterday. So the call-in number, 444, what is it? 813-444-9588. I'm really rusty at this. Okay. So to start it off, I want to touch on some facts, Julius, and I'm not sure. I know you're sound in your job.
Right.
So introduce your guest.
Oh, I did.
Oh,
yeah. As a matter of fact, Julius, go ahead and tell the audience who you are again. I know you've been on here before, but I forget and they may forget.
Yeah, it's been a little while. Appreciate you having me on. Julius Adams, local attorney, founder of Adams Law and Consulting, PLLC. And we're based out of Tampa.
Mm-hmm.
We do a lot of family law, corporate business litigation, real estate litigation.
Okay. So I'll go back to my prior point. And I think you're pretty sound, and forgive me for being maybe stereotypical, but it seems like lawyers should never be out of work. I mean, you guys can find work anywhere. You can represent anybody. Now, that should be a lead into these investigation talks, but we'll save that for later. Yeah. But the job report, having worked in healthcare for 10 years as a full-time employee, and then really since 2018 as a federal subcontractor, I always felt healthcare was pretty solid as well. I mean, the only real waves or impact of that was really the pandemic, but that's normally a pretty solid field. So when I look at the jobs report, and I like to be at least neutral about it. When Trump was in office, people didn't think the numbers were good. Clint would always counter me with, about this credit card scenario. Well, the jobs report, look, well, this is not the official one. I think the official jobs report comes out Monday, if I'm not mistaken. But what I'm seeing here is that it's still at 3.7, so it's really unchanged. I am seeing where the only employment decline was in retail trade, transportation, and warehousing.
Right.
Now, the reason why that's significant, because we still have all this talk about inflation.
Right.
And what I can't get my head around is the economy's good. It appears to be good. But then we have all this inflation. I want to make sure I'm trying to frame this in the right way.
Why is the inflation so bad? Is that
Well,
the general question?
Well, the inflation is bad because what this is not reflecting is the mortgage. Home buying, and we know that mortgage is up. I saw a report, and I know I have these stats here. I think they said in And
Well, there've been some reports that a bubble is being created, and I think it's
Mm.
true with
Mhm.
the real estate. And I've also been hearing that 2023 is going to be
yeah,
it's going to be a weird time, you know,
and so
economy wise.
economy was right, and I think we probably saw the same report, and it's typically Bank of America. I think their president's the one that's been kind of leading the charge, but I saw a report saying that 90% of CEOs predict there's going to be a recession in 2023, mid 2023,
Right.
and
And you know, oftentimes mortgages is or the mortgage industry is
Mhm.
heavily tied to that.
Mhm. Exactly. So with the Feds tightening, which they're trying to slow uh, house purchasing down. I mean, because they're trying to decrease the, inflation is because the value of money's gone down, so they're trying to bring that down, not flood the market, bring the value of money back up. I understand that, but I think there's a lot that's going to be tied into what came out of the Twitter files. And I think it's all relative because, we hear these reports, and if you have your own source of financial resources, and I have I know the name of the group that manages my 401k, but still, I mean, being a subcontractor, I'm not tied into a company.
Mm.
So, I get emails. I can just log on. I mean, you can do that when you're with a company, but I think a lot of this information has been, I can say, suppressed. The powers that be, big tech, again, what came out of the Twitter files, and they're totally separate, but then they're related because inflation is bad, but unemployment looks decent. And I just think there's a lot that's not being told.
Well, like I said, with inflation, I think a lot of it we're still feeling the effects from COVID.
Mhm.
I think that's a big part of it. PPP. There was a lot of money going around. There was a lot of fraud going around.
Exactly.
So all that, I mean, generally what causes inflation is when there's just too much money going around.
Right.
And so if you want to slow it down, you got to kind of slow the money supply down. And that's what the Fed's all about, and that's kind of like what they're doing. But in a way, and I'm no economist, but just my basic knowledge of it, it seems like you can kind of tell that there's something going on when you look at the housing market. And some people may disagree, but it looks to me like a bubble might be being created. And so when it busts, then what? Hopefully we don't have another 2000 and what was that, 8?
Yeah, exactly. And so I did find my note here that the rent increase is now affecting the whole situation. I didn't know the numbers, but it makes sense. I think that the Bank of America president was saying that roughly 50% of the American people are renting, and that makes sense. But I think
and that might be good that they're renting.
Yeah. Well, since rent's increasing, that's what's hitting them because rent's increasing. And I don't know and I know rent is crazy, especially out in our area, but a good many of those people that are renting also have huge credit card balances. So, I mean, it's wagging itself. And I have that stat about the mortgage rates. In July of 2021, the mortgage rate was at 2.78. December 22, 6.58%. So, I mean, a huge increase. People can't afford housing, and really that wags a number of things. And to be and I'm really tangential, so you guys keep me on track because I'll go off like I'm about to go off now on this little tangent. When you have too many renters, like in our community, a new community is only maybe 5 years old. We've been out there almost 3 years. And it was almost obvious when people could not, when these companies started coming in, purchasing houses and then renting them out. But then we started having issues, teens just walk through the neighborhood now, vandalism, that kind of stuff. So it trickles down when they can't buy, so we're not getting, quality neighbors, if you will, and then they're renting, and then people are coming together, and they're halving their rent, and we've all been there. I mean, I've been there, so I'm not knocking a person not being able to purchase a house, especially now, but I mean, I just think it's a trickle-down effect that comes back.
I mean, it's a really bad problem, but I mean, what's the alternative? I mean, that's kind of what caused '08. Some would argue that the reason why we had that because people were getting in mortgages that they couldn't deal with.
Well,
and,
they were.
And no one really wins like if everyone is foreclosing. You know what I mean?
But they were really
and
kind
I
of.
know it was bad. I did a lot of. I still do a lot of foreclosure defense.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's just it got to one point where it was just rampant, and they're like every year, foreclosures, and it doesn't really help people. It just causes a situation where there's going to be more renters.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, before I leave this topic and get into the next, the other things that are contributing to this inflation, the railroad strike, and we talked about that, and that's not a big deal, but when it was made a big deal, I'm going, man, railroad, okay, I guess there's still an industry, obviously, but like, what's the big deal? All of a sudden, what's the big deal with the railroad strike? And especially since they had a bill that was passed with increased pay, but it's my understanding that the bill didn't include something that's really beneficial and something that an employee would want. And at my age, I was complaining about my back as I walked in here. They're saying that they don't have sick leave. To deal with their grueling job and the toll that it takes on them, and they can't even get time off to go to the doctor. So that makes perfect sense. Yeah. The last thing are the obvious things: the Russia war with Ukraine, and I see we're coming up on a break here in a minute, and then the COVID shutdown. There's something interesting, and again, it all ties into what Elon Musk did with the Twitter files. So I'm going to tease that. I'm going to come back in, and I'm going to start with the COVID shutdown. I listened to a number of interviews, especially when I'm being called on to do the show. I'd say, okay, I gotta let me go into my research mode. And yeah, I'm not far right, but I'm definitely on the right. So I have to go to my go-to sources, and then I don't use Sean Hannity. He's too right for me. I was like, okay, come on back over, man. Give me something to go with.
He's pretty right. Yeah, he's right.
He is. I can't even deal with Sean Hannity sometimes. Yeah. So, but still, I found a couple of things that I think are going to be good. So when we come back from the show, we're going to be talking about the COVID shutdown and the impact from that.
All right.
All right. Yeah. I need to pull this up because I need.
Touch Radio,
you gotta let the world know. Hey, that's Touch Radio. We'll be right back.
Oh, okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Okay,
now we're back. From this is straight up the middle. You got just a little bit. I gotta coach you a little bit, and you gotta move away from the wall a little bit too.
Oh, okay.
That's good.
Yeah, I got to see. That's why I'm gonna pull it so I can see the camera, and I'm really bad at this.
Man, Darryl wants to switch stuff around, so I'm trying to. I'm looking for stuff, trying to figure it out.
Where's the?
Oh, we sound kind of low.
Much better than you can hear now.
It always happens when you got the serve. When you got
this thing right here.
Oh, so we can't hear you.
Anyway, I know. I just thought, how is the lighting though? It needs to be back over there.
Yeah, it's not the best. I'm not gonna say it's not the best.
Hey, this is Agent Wright, better known as Mr. Clean. You looking for some great barbecue? Come see them two brothers in the grill, located at 423 Virginia Street, Charleston, West Virginia. We got ribs, chicken, pulled pork, brisket, collard greens, mac and cheese, baby. Come get some and get you a nice, smooth cigar. 304-550-4431. That is 304-550-4431. Come get some, baby. The Rib Man, mama, the Rib Man.
Nestled in the heart of West Tampa, the Maduro Marauder Cigar Lounge offers a wide variety of premium cigars from Esteli, Nicaragua. In addition, the lounge offers a relaxed environment for you to come back, lay, chill, and relax and smoke a great cigar. Visit us at our brick and mortar location, 1944 West Main Street, Tampa, as well as online, www.maduromarauders.com.
It's a beautiful
Hot mic
day.
moment
Daryl
and
Johnson
everything.
in Tampa Bay Tammy.
Wishing all our listeners all over the world
Happy holidays.
happy holidays.
The Washington Democrats, so she might be 7,000 too.
From In Touch News.
Kind of like that Florida State UF. Okay. All right, we're back. In Touch News, straight up the middle. Let me give out the call-in number again. I want to start you guys off because I really want some other points of views here. So it's 813-444-9588. Before the break, we're talking about the things that contributed to the inflation. But one thing that I came across recently, and this wasn't even a recent article, and so I'm going to ask you, Julius, have you ever heard of the Great Barrington Declaration?
No.
I hadn't either. This declaration was signed at the time. This was in 2020, so pandemic is still at its height. And there were 50,000 physicians, mostly physicians, that signed this declaration. And it was really about what a total shutdown would do to the American economy. And I'm trying to, there's some good points, I got to pull it up some. But CNN just released a report saying that teenage, I think they use the term brains, are aged more since the pandemic than at any other time. And I thought that right, because now they're starting to look at the effects of the shutdown. Now, with this in 2020, and I believe this kind of stuff was what was suppressed. They being big tech, I'm going to say the Democrat Party, not the average Democrat, but the party itself, the powers that be, lobbied together, and that's what came out with the Twitter files. The Twitter files are more really targeted toward the Hunter Biden situation or the laptop situation, but any information that went against what they were putting out about COVID, and they were quick to label things as misinformation, and that's when that whole tag came about. Now, but in 2020, and they're telling this declaration of that many doctors is saying that, and I'm just going to read this part, coming from left and right around the world, we've devoted careers to protecting people. Current lockdown policies are producing devastating effects on short and long-term public health. The results, to name a few, include lower childhood vaccination rates, worsening cardiovascular disease outcomes, fewer cancer screenings, and deteriorating mental health, leading to greater excess mortality in years to come, with the working class and young members of society carrying the heaviest burden. Keeping students out of school is a grave injustice.
So they're basically saying that the shutdown caused a detrimental effect to these kids.
And here's the thing, but this is in 2020. They had a lot of time to back off. 2020 is when they were at the height of the shutdown.
How many doctors signed this declaration?
This was 50,000. When I went on the site,
50,000 doctors?
And 50,000.
From across the country?
From across the country.
They didn't just come from one state.
Right. They're saying left, right, and around the world. Because there are doctors who, in other countries, they don't have the freedoms that we have, nor the platforms that we have to make these things. I do remember there was.
But what are they saying? I mean, what can you do about that? A pandemic was going on.
Right,
but you had to do something.
But what they were saying was there was enough evidence, and this was actually put out. This was being debated across. If you remember, the one that got attacked, one of the senators, Rand Paul. Rand Paul was one of the biggest. He was really aggressive with Dr. Fauci, and he would always take him to task and talked about herd immunity. Because when we came into this pandemic, they were saying we only need a 2-week lockdown to get it below the curve, or something with the curve, right? 2 weeks turned into a couple of months, and then the policies went from there. But back then, there was enough evidence to say that young children, and I forget that the age range weren't they weren't the ones that would be hit the most. Only the sick and infirm. So don't shut schools down. But that's exactly what they went to. Now people can tie this into, and I believe it, they tied into what was coming up. They knew the elections were coming up, right? So they needed mail-in voting, and it all comes back because this report had to been, this stance had to been crafted before. This report was October of 2020, so it had to been crafted before October 2020. And these physicians are now, but not are now, they're saying this back in 2020, and then you have CNN releasing reports now, because what's come out, there have been a lot of things that have come out about women, I don't know what birth rates, I don't know if it's lower, but there have been some significant events dealing with birth rates since the pandemic, since all the vaccinations. And that's been a reason why a lot of people push back. It's like, okay, you come up with these vaccinations really quick, and what always bothered me was, did we lose sight of figuring out who got our country sick? You know, at least Trump was a guy, and this is why Trump was so popular. The China virus came from China. We're going to find out, but then they labeled him xenophobic, all this stuff, and so that went away. Joe Biden has made no attempt to hold she available. Like, okay, tell us what happened. How
Well,
did
we know what happened, don't we?
No,
I
we
mean,
know what they
we
know.
know what happened. I mean,
Well,
you know, it was possibly it came from China, and then it moved over here. And they said it was due to, I guess, how they keep like a lot of livestock, the way they keep it, and that kind of thing.
Well, they disputed that. I thought they.
And then there was a big fight about that. I don't
Right.
think anybody ever got to the bottom of that.
Right.
You know, and so then it got here. I mean, no one's ever. I mean, when's the last time we've been through a pandemic? I mean, who knows? Who knew really what to do? You know,
Well, there was
during
a swine
that time
flu.
period.
There was a swine flu. It wasn't this big.
It wasn't this big.
But here's the thing. Here is why it's all relative, and I'm always plugging the Twitter files, because what we found out was they not only were they were trying to censor Trump and get him out, so they were making him look bad every chance they got, but they had to control what was also being said that Trump could use as a basis. So if this kind of information was being suppressed from all these doctors, now it's coming out now because Elon Musk is at the realm, so he's letting people post. And now when you see the date stamp on this, and you figure out that people were actually telling the truth. Well, there was James Woods, and I don't follow James Woods, but you know, he's one of the poster children for being censored. His account was taken down. He's a big Trump guy, but besides that, he's not a leftist guy. He was probably more anti-leftist than pro-Trump.
Well, he was on what was he on Fox the other day?
Yeah.
And I heard him say he's going to sue the DNC for.
Yeah.
I know you're going to talk about the laptop.
Right.
And you know, if you want to get into that, I think the first thing we have to do. What do you think? First off, do you think that the laptop is authentic?
Of course. Here's the thing. That's not even a question anymore. And it was convenient.
Why is it not a question? I mean, because I kind of looked at it, but why do you think it's not?
It's not a question whether it's an actual laptop.
No. That it's authentic and what they say it has in it is in it.
Because why would they suppress a story? First of all, why did they rush to suppress the story, right? And then that's when they started shutting people's accounts down. And then they got 50 intelligence officials, and on that stage, in that debate with Biden and Trump, Biden's like, in 50 national, they all debunked this story this guy's talking about is all Russian disinformation. They all were in cahoots. You can't have big tech censoring the DNC, obviously, who's in charge of all the debating stuff, the DNC, Fauci. You can't have.
Let's go back a minute.
Not Fauci,
though.
but yeah.
Let's go back a minute. I mean, okay, he leaves the laptop at a computer store.
That sounded weird to me.
And so so you know, these days everything in your phone and your laptop is it could be anything, very very important information. So so then they're saying that he left it at a computer store and he never came back to get it. And so after 90 days, the owner said, "Well, it's my property now," basically.
Which is normally what
happens. And then
happens.
they decide to investigate. You know, I mean, maybe that happened, but that all sounds kind of weird.
It sounds convenient. I will submit to you. I thought that was weird when that Tony, let's call him whatever, he had that typical Italian name. When he first came forward in 2020, he was like, I want to tell it all. Anybody that comes, okay, you want to tell it all. And this is so out in your face. You mean this guy, you know, who, whether or not he has any professional international credentials, this guy being Hunter Biden, did all this business overseas, but then all the evidence on the laptop that he just brings. I mean, first of all, who does that?
Who does that?
Right.
Who does that? Now, I'll be the first to say, if it's true, wow, that's, oh man. I mean, because then that means that Joe Biden could be implicated.
Yes, that's what that means.
And it means that he was involved in a scam during the presidential run. Yeah. So, but I don't know. I just think that it, you know, because how do you authenticate? They say you can authenticate it and all this stuff, and you know, I'm no tech person. I'm a lawyer, but
yeah.
I just know, like, from a legal standpoint, this was a court of law.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think that that laptop could be said that this is authentic. I mean, you know, it would be a battle of experts to say whether that information is authentic or not.
Well, I think that's be the easy part.
And that's why I keep going back to, well, how did you get the laptop?
Right. And I still think it goes back to the easy part. If you've ever watched any of those whodunits, is what I call it, 48 hours.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and they say, well, you know, once they arrested the lady, they got her laptop and she had erased all these websites, how to kill my spouse. I mean, that's the easy part, figuring out what someone's type of something. Because, yeah, back in my day as a technician, all I had to do was get a dead hard drive out, and we had connection, so I'm not making it a primary drive. As long as I can connect it to a secondary port in my active computer, then I can read off of it. So, and that was back at IDE interfaces, and so that's old. I mean, you know, we just have a different interface now. And for my tech people, we have SCSI now. So yeah, I know a little bit. I'm still not there, but still,
So you don't think it was Russia?
No,
misinformation?
No, certainly not. And when we come back from the break, I think we're not up on the break yet? We're up on the break. So when we come back from the break, we're going to talk about, I'm going to start to read out some of these Twitter files. Because see, my other group, they wouldn't read them out. You guys going to get it from me. So again, 813-444-9588.
Hey, this is Agent Wright, better known as Mr. Clean. You looking for some great barbecue? Come see them two brothers in the grill, located at 423 Virginia Street, Charleston, West Virginia. We got ribs, chicken, pulled pork, brisket, collard greens, mac and cheese, baby. Come get some and get you a nice, smooth cigar. 304-550-4431. That is 304-550-4431. Come get some, baby. The Rib Man, mama, the Rib Man.
It's a beautiful day.
This is Daryl Johnson
And Tampa Bay Tammy.
wishing all our listeners all over the world
Happy holidays.
happy holidays.
Happy holidays to you.
From In Touch News.
And radio.
When it comes to reality radio, everyone is a star.
Shining star for you to see what your life can truly be.
On your smooth soul and R&B station.
On the World Wide Web.
In Touch Radio.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you to a good friend of mine.
It's the Dash and Dale Day.
Put your hands together.
Jazz at Miss Connie's house. On In Touch Radio.
You're listening to Tampa Bay Tammy
Your girlfriend.
on In Touch Radio.
In Touch Radio.
Okay, we're back. Again, straight up the middle, 813-444-9588. So this is the professor. And so let me disclaim something that I normally disclaim, that, and if you've ever watched the show or listened to the show, you know I'm on the right. So I'm going to read just a couple. I have a couple of screenshots. I'm not on Twitter, but I have some screenshots from Twitter.
Okay.
So Elon Musk, who, and I'm saying this tongue in cheek, you know, black guy. You know, he's a black guy, right? According to when he took over Twitter, released, and he made this announcement that, well, I forget what the announcement was, but basically at 5 o'clock p.m. Friday, I'm going to release this information that he now has access to. So he used a guy, Matt, I think it's Taibbi, to do this. So there are a number of shots. So I think it goes up to 30 something, but I'm only going to do maybe the first, whatever I have here. So the first one was it's called just the Twitter files. The second post was what you're about to read is the first installment in a series based upon thousands of internal documents obtained by sources at Twitter. The Twitter files. So that's now when it's almost like when they were trying to get Obama with Obamagate, Watergate, Obamagate, all these type things. So now number 3 says the Twitter files tell an incredible story from inside one of the world's largest and most influential social media platforms. It is a Frankensteinian tale of a human-built mechanism grown out of the control of its designer. And this is in succession. Number 4, Twitter in its conception was a brilliant tool for enabling instant mass communication, making a true real-time global conversation possible for the first time. And everybody likes that. I was never a big fan of Twitter, the whole tweet thing. This wasn't my thing. It grew on me as time went on. I use Twitter more for, I'm going to say for news, because I can go and most reputable posts, and we can talk about the green check mark, which means you're verified. Elon Musk now wants to charge $8 to $10 to get that blue check mark, and I'm not opposed to it. I won't get it, but I'm not going to do it. But most reputable posts from verified accounts will have a link to where, either what they're talking about or where they got it from. Not because, I'm trying to get through this god-awful research process that I believe in sources, but it makes the conversation to me more credible. It gives it more credence than someone spouting off a bunch. I'm not a guy that can spout off facts. I probably sound like, dude, did this guy even go to school? Much less does he teach a class, So I don't do that. I'm more of a practical guy. So number 5, in an early conception, Twitter more than lived up to its mission statement, giving people the power to create and share ideas and information instantly without boundaries. As time progressed, however, the company was slowly forced to add those barriers. Some of those first tools for controlling speech were designed to combat the likes of spam and financial fraudsters. And we can all appreciate that, right? Spam was crazy back in the day. Fraud was, and I hate them now. 7, slowly over time, Twitter staff and executives began to find more and more uses for these tools. These tools now becoming more censoring tools, and this is my interpretation. Outsiders began petitioning the company to manipulate speech as well. First a little, then more often, then constantly. Now here's where it gets big. By 2020, requests from connected actors, and that's not actors as in actors, actresses, actors, and obviously counselor here knows the context of that. So by 2020, requests from connected actors to delete tweets were routine. One executive wrote to another, more to review, and this is, quote, more to review from the Biden team, end quote. The reply would come back, handled, quote, end quote. Now, for those who would be like me, and let me give you, those who even know about what we used to call the Wayback Machine when I was more of a hands-on tech or just a computer technician, it's now called the Internet Archives. So you can go to the Internet Archives, you can just put it in Google, it'll come up, internetarchive.org, and there's a sub thing called the Wayback Machine. There's a little field, and you can type in any web address, and it's going to give you all of the archive pages of when it started, of when it was being tracked by whatever web server. My personal site, I've used that to retrieve some pictures and I wasn't looking for these pictures, but every now and again when I'm prepping for class, I'll try a scenario. So when I go in class, I know it works, right? And then I will come up with pictures like, man, where did this picture come from? But it's so hit or miss if a search engine spotter would hit that particular file on the internet, on the World Wide Web. So that I'm just providing context. Here's an actual URL, Uniform Resource Locator, Twitter.com. This is actually the account name, Jared879-83561. Now, if you want to go to Matt Tybey's page or just go on Twitter and just type in hashtag Twitter files, Matt Tybey's going to come up because he's the one I think that Elon Musk tasked with this. But I believe it's these type of URLs that you can use the Internet Archive to see, because now at this point, someone could spin it, someone on the left can spin it, and a person who's not really savvy enough They know that I can go online because we used to tease all the time and say if it's online, it's true. I mean, if it's on the internet, it's true. My dad would. Funny story. My dad told me a couple months ago. Hey, anything you want to find, just go to YouTube. Man, I've been an IT person 27 years, and he's telling me what to do, right?
Yeah.
So this is why, to our conversation about the Hunter Biden laptop, to why Twitter Files release is so important, because now people like us on the right side, we never thought we were seeing ghosts, but they made us to seem like, man, see these people, these conspiracy theories again. Here we go again with these conspiracy theories. But if I tell you, like I did, being up front, I introduced a site you can go, and this is a site that's been around. Go to that site and put this URL in. So if this one doesn't work, put in one and you see how well this system has always worked.
Well, first off, again, you gotta authenticate all this. They say they've done it.
Mm-hmm.
But politics is a contact sport.
I like that.
And it's an adversarial system, and there's billions of dollars at stake. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And so if Biden would have lost, that would have meant something, and because he won, then that also means something. So
Exactly.
Again, I'm not saying it's right, but it just, to me, it just kind of shows what we all know or should have known, is that when you have this kind of money at stake and there's so much stuff at stake, and what these, and like Obama said, like elections can have results, they have consequences.
Right.
If you don't take, I could see that, because we already know, like, the GOP takes steps, like covert steps, to do all sorts of stuff, but the DNC does too.
Mm-hmm.
Again, not saying it's right, but that's just the truth of the matter. But I'm a little more concerned about the money that was. This whole situation where they're saying, well, if it's authenticated, that Hunter was involved with the Chinese with some major money and all of that. That's this story is just going to catch fire. It's going to be what's probably talked about for months and months and months.
It has to be, because the new Congress is coming in January, right?
Right.
And Groomer, I think his name is Groomer, representative in the House. He's promising. They have to start off with
the new Benghazi.
You're right. They have to start off with Hunter Biden. That's the only way you can connect Joe Biden. And so what they're saying is, you're right. If this is correct, and see, in their mind, this statement that I read or heard from Representative Groomer was before Twitter Files. So the reason why, as I came in here this morning, everything that was said now, who's going to deny it? Because even Trump posted, I'm glad you guys have seen what I've been talking about. He's been the most hated. This is the most infamous president ever now. He's not like popular. Trump is a different name.
Trump is not, and then that's a whole nother thing. I don't know if he's going to, I think we might be looking at that's going to be a big thing too, Trump DeSantis, how that's going to play.
Exactly. And that'll be our last segment, because you're right. And it's all relative. And I believe how Trump handles this. And so I don't want to spill, because I think we have one more segment to go, right? So I don't want to get into that now. Our last segment, we're going to talk about Trump, Trump, DeSantis, and then there's Trump. It's difficult. But I want to, here is one. Which one is this? Or this? Let me go back to my screenshots. Those are a little more rehearsed for me, if you will. Because what I'm attempting to show, because I don't always have this platform, is you don't have to take my word for it, the resident Republican / conservative / independent. I said that wrong. Independent / conservative / Republican. You have to take my word for it. Now just go to Twitter, and now you can see what's going on. Elon Musk is going to, he's probably second most hated white guy besides Trump. From the left. I want to be facetious about it, but I think that's true. I think they hate him now. But
what do you think needs to be done
about,
I guess,
this?
Like say, because I think about it, like let's say, let's just say that everything, the laptops are authenticated, this is all true, accurate, all this stuff. Okay, now what?
Well, Trump's going to be saying Biden needs to be removed and he needs to be installed. He's going to say something as crazy as that.
Biden
But no
jail?
one. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, no. Biden. I don't think that's going to happen. Now, this is where Clint has said it, and as much as I don't want to believe it, and I believe it's just a part of how lawyers are trained, in American jurisprudence and America being this, I think you call this idea, this whole fluffy way of looking at America. And one of the things that I got from many conversations with Clint is the distinction between the president and the office of the president. So I say that as we're talking about Biden going to jail. No, that's why Trump didn't go. And they didn't have, they thought they had, but now we know what they were using to help them with their case with Trump. And even with all of the muscle and advantage that they had, they still couldn't put Trump away. He's been impeached twice. Never. He always got away. So I don't think they're going to get Biden as in. I don't think he's going to go to jail. But what you have with
if this is even all true.
If this is all, these lawyers, man. Do you guys not see the smoke coming off of this iPad? He's still talking about it.
Because you have to look at this. I mean, from the 2016 election, it was confirmed that Russia interfered with the election.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just imagine that. Like they actually did that. That's being confirmed. I mean, so if it happened once, if that actually happened once, then you can't ever discount it again.
But yeah.
I mean, this is what Putin will do. Clearly,
I
so you can't discount it totally.
I can't discount that, but I think now what you have to bring on board is you have to keep it all on the table. So good, we have the music. Again, we're going to talk about Trump and Ye and Trump and DeSantis on the way back, straight up the middle. We'll see you on the other side. Yeah.
In Touch Radio, the most loved station across the nation. In Touch Radio. Tell a friend. In Touch Radio.
Who doesn't love being number one? When your team's dominating the standings, or your favorite band rocks the charts at number one, it feels good, right? Kind of like how it feels when you have auto insurance with State Farm. Because making you feel like number one is an honor your local State Farm agent takes seriously. Through the good times and not so good, your State Farm agent's proud to be here to help life go right.
Call Herman White at 961-6661. That's 961-6661. By now, we're all aware of the dangers of COVID-19. Like others with existing health issues, cancer patients are at a high risk due to their compromised condition. If you are newly diagnosed with cancer, your care likely can't wait. Moffitt Cancer Center is the best place for your cancer concerns and to provide guidance to help you plan your next steps. We're here for you. Call 1-888-456-2839 or go to moffitt.org/here-for-you.
We're playing your favorite old school. Today's R&B. With a smooth touch of jazz. You're listening to In Touch Radio.
Okay, we're back. Straight up the middle. 813-944-444-9588. Excuse me. So before the break, we were talking about I have yet another counselor in here who's telling me, or counselor in here that's telling me that if it's true, and this will drive any conservative crazy. This is our day. I mean, you just run out want to just smoke a cigar, even if you don't smoke, because Elon Musk is now that guy. He's that guy. So now we're going to talk about what this means for what I think this means for. We can tie this in. We hadn't talked about the Georgia runoff, but there are implications there.
Mm.
The reason why it's implications there is because conservatives that were taken offline, now we know that messaging has been compromised. The message that we want to get out. I heard that there was across the 3 states when Trump lost. You notice I'm saying that? I've come to terms with that when Trump lost. Or I used to say when Biden was installed. However you want to go. Whatever day I may change my position. How first. Okay, Trump lost. We'll go with that today. I'm a big boy. I can take that. But now we're seeing that. Well, I heard that it was only 40,000 votes across the 3 states when Trump lost. You remember, because he was trying to get Arizona a recount, and Georgia was close. Herschel Walker, there's been reports out of Georgia. I don't know how true they are, but
don't do it. Don't do it, Tom.
Because I don't know how true they are, but they said that in the initial calculation, so on November 7th, whatever it was, that there were 20,000 votes that were taken off his tally. Now, I'm not here to argue that. I'm not here to argue that, and I'm also not here to talk about the werewolf and the vampire. And the one thing that, and I'm not going to be that tangential, but just to come back, if now we can start to think, not we as in conservatives, but now if Democrats, I don't think liberals in that, liberals, not independents, liberals and Democrats, if they can start to think, maybe there was something behind this, then it opens the door that, okay, you voted that much for, you carried, well, let's say Kemp won by such a large margin, he couldn't pull Herschel Walker over. Now, let me stop and address the elephant in the room. I'm an educator. I don't believe Herschel Walker is up for the job. Let's just get that out there. I don't believe he's up for the job. He's a Republican.
I know that was a big deal for you to say that.
it hurt. Well, but look, it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt to say it. It doesn't hurt to say it. It hurts because it's true.
Yes.
I don't want to, I don't want to be like I'm holding. I tell a lot of lies in my life. So it doesn't hurt to lie. It hurt because that's true.
Yeah, you have to. So, we just need more honesty. That's what we need at this point.
So let's get that out there. But like anything else, I don't think. What is his argument? I don't know. Here's the thing. You have to understand that I don't listen to any Herschel Walker speeches, and when it comes across, I just can't listen to it. Yeah. But I don't think anybody's really listening to it. He's no different from Marshawn Lynch when he does his show on Sundays. It's hard to listen to him because they're letting him be in his element, and he doesn't. He just the colloquialism that comes out of that show is just hard to listen to. Mm-hmm. But you're going to have John Fetterman. He, this guy's kind of like Igor-ish. I don't really understand what his mental state is either.
But didn't he graduate from Harvard or something like that?
Well, that's what one would say.
Yeah, I think. Yeah.
But we're not talking about what happened before. We're talking about now, his state now, when he was in the debates and he had to read the screen prompt, and they're already lowering the bar, going, well, just kind of speak to him slowly. Like, what? Yeah. So there's some issues across the board. So I don't want to be that tangential. Let's get back to what this means for Trump. This is what I think it means. Mm-hmm. Trump, as much as he is shooting himself in the foot, I don't know how he's able to garnish the support that he does. And I say I don't, but then I do. The whole thing with Ye and this Fuentes guy, who I really didn't know much about, and I know much about Ye because of his music, and I'm not like I don't listen to his music that way, but Ye has always been different. Even before he was Ye and just Kanye, he was always different. Yeah. Had some nice hooks in his line, but that's it. I don't understand what the meeting was about, and I don't understand why Trump allowed it, because he is a story. Trump is a story all in itself. Anything out of the ordinary is going to catch too much publicity. He's already against the grain in whatever he does, and to then bring Ye in after all the anti-Semitic stuff he's said. I don't split I'm not splitting anything with Ye as far as what he meant historically, because I'm not that guy. I don't know the history behind that. I know enough that it can be said both ways. Mm-hmm. Ye has not said anything that Farrakhan hadn't said. He has said something Farrakhan hasn't said, but they're in the same vein. They have said some very inflammatory things against Jews. Mm-hmm. Not so much Ye, but Farrakhan backs it up very eloquently, and he's Farrakhan, right? Then you bring Kyrie in. I mean, his things, it's the same way. But when I talk about Trump and why he did it with Ye, the only thing I can come up with, in his orange mind, madman, he's the only one that can turn this around. He can say, you know, he's accessible to all these black folk. How many? Reagan wasn't. Bill Clinton might have had.
That Trump could
Trump
mend
is accessible.
The rift that's going on right now.
I think Trump can, if he does not get too far past himself. Look what Trump has weathered as far as a PR. I mean, now I think this is the lowest he's been because he came out and hit DeSantis. I think because DeSantis kind of got him.
Yeah, his start hasn't been good. I mean, his start hasn't been good, and I think that a lot of Republicans are starting to turn away from him. You saw how all across the country, like the Carrie Lake out in Arizona, she sounded just like Trump. I mean, it was just the whole midterms were just like little mini Trumps, and a lot of them, most of them, she was the one that she was expected to win, and she lost. So I think that it's kind of showing that the Trump brand, if you will, is watering down, and there may be some people that are even a little afraid of it, you know, because 2016, like his first term was crazy, you know, and I don't know if people want that anymore, you know. So I think that, you know, him coming out, it's gonna be really, really tricky, and I think they got a guy.
They got a guy, right?
I think they're looking at it.
And that guy being DeSantis. Well, now here's the thing about that. Here's the thing. They have a guy because while DeSantis has not really been labeled the establishment, if he goes to Washington, he's the establishment. He is not a renegade outside of the, you know, on the outside like Trump is. Even if Trump comes back in, Trump is still an outsider. You can't, because he is so unorthodox. To his detriment, he won't listen. He won't read. I mean, it's the things we're talking about with Herschel Walker, almost.
I mean, he kind of like hijacked the GOP. I mean, it wasn't. I mean, which is crazy that he even achieved that. But I think that there's some hard-nosed conservatives, different types of, because there's all kind of conservatives, and I think that they would love to get Trump off their neck.
Yeah.
And get back to quote unquote business, as they say. You know. I don't know if every conservative really likes him. I think they deal with him because maybe they felt that they had to. But now here's an opportunity that they may be able to get from under him. I mean, I think, what do they say? An indictment's coming soon. If he gets indicted, what then?
Right.
You know?
Right.
And so what are they? And then, you know, are they going to still sign on with that? You know. So I think that the GOP they've got another guy, and they might even need another guy at this point, you know?
I can't argue any of that because it's all true. But what's also is true is you got to be careful how you treat Trump because you won't get his voters. And his voters will make the difference for the GOP.
And
you can label them MAGA voters or not. You can label them that way, but that's just like only Republicans are called election deniers. When you have Stacey Abrams, who said she didn't believe Kemp won in 2016, you know. But only Republicans have been labeled election deniers. But again, however they decide to proceed, they have to be careful with that one Donald J. Trump because his voters are loyal. And that's why I think they're doing why they're taking...
Well, then what happened in Arizona, though? That's the question, though.
Here's the thing. Look what Twitter Files just did. This is why Twitter Files, the release is so important.
Right.
Because Arizona had already happened before this came out. So we're like, if this lady was expected to win... And on election day, machines were down, and it's not like someone said the machines were down. That was covered. That's on the news. What they tried to say was, hey, you know, we had a backup plan. This is nothing new. But then they were only down in the heavy Republican districts. It's not a big deal. It's not a big deal to us. And then she wins by less than 16,000. You're right. You have Trump all over again. Because I think one batch could have solved that and swung in Carrie Lake's way. Right. Carrie Lake's way. So we have that there. And I know we're coming up on the end. So, yeah.
It's going to be an interesting time. Like 2023, I think that, you know, probably like mid-2023, it's just going to be a lot of, you know, Trump's. I don't know what he's going to do. I just know an indictment's probably coming. And he's going to have to try to work that out. I don't know how he works that out amongst all the other litigation that he's involved in, you know. it's gonna be telling for the whole GOP, because if he gets indicted, then that means that you got to stand with him. And the question is, do you want to? Can you afford to?
Well, the fact that the GOP has the House, they have a leg up.
Right.
They can always split the difference. They don't have to pass what comes out of the Senate, right?
Right.
But here is why you're right. You're going to have, if what Bank of America and all these other CEOs are saying, you're going to have a slight recession. You know what Biden is doing? He's changing the Iowa first and the whole primary thing to put South Carolina first. There's nobody that doesn't know why he's doing that, because that's how he won, if you want to say won, because South Carolina is where he got his boost. He'd been pretty much creamed in all the other debates that they had until he got to South Carolina, and everybody knows Jim Clyburn went to bat for him, and then now he was in contention. So now he's trying to put Carolina first. So he has to do a lot with all of that to stay ahead. But if this recession hits, Trump's only chance is to stay clean enough to
and how can he do that?
Right. To be statesman enough to not attack DeSantis. He's already hit Iowa. I won big in Iowa. He likes, I won big in Iowa, and he's really trying to draw attention to what Biden is doing. I mean, this is where elections have consequences. So Biden won, or Biden's in the office. So yeah, he can change it around how he wants. The DNC is signed off on it. So I think that's going to happen. But it's going to be really telling how these things play out. And I won't be heartbroken if Trump does not make it through this. Now, if he goes to jail, I'll be bothered. Not heartbroken, I'll be bothered that they would try to do this, because it's so out in your face. We don't like this guy. He represents a threat, and that's why that's what Twitter Files really tells me. They don't want another January 6th. Look at the allegiance that Trump has from his supporters. We can't afford to have another day like this. But now, I think it's out. Now, you said until it's proven. I think it's enough proof there, but we'll see.
There's going to be an investigation, and they really need to look into it. But I guess, my legal cap comes on. I'm like, okay, all this has to be authenticated. And I think that's going to be tricky. But, but they got ways to do it and everything, so I don't know, but I just think you have to start from the beginning, because the implications of if it's true, like, I don't even want to think about it. It's just one more thing to put on when 23 come up. It's going to be a crazy year. There's just no way around. There's no way around it.
Right.
If it's true, oh my goodness.
And it's going to be something, and we can end this with something that I thought I'd get.
Not a good job, but you're right. It'll play right into Trump's message if this is authenticated. So,
exactly.
Interesting times.
Exactly. Well, we're at the end of our show. Thank you for listening. Straight up the middle. Clint and the Pete will be back next week. All right. Cool. Yeah.